we're going to look at defining a system. So a system helps identify the forces acting on an object. All year we have been talking about free body diagrams on A1. All year we've looked at systems that involve only one object. So if you were to draw a free body diagram on this orange, all we look at is that there's an applied force applied. We know the force applied is greater than the force of friction. There's going to be a positive acceleration. To the right, there's the force. We've always been using weight, but the force of gravity or the force of weight, the force of normal. So in this system, all we care about is that some force is actually being applied to the orange. When we look at the next picture, that is the force. This apple, we don't really care about the apple. So in this case, these don't cancel out. This apple is what's in our story. The apple is the force in our free body diagram. But as we know, nothing happens in a vacuum. In reality, it's not the apple that's actually causing this orange to move. As we know, nothing actually acts in a vacuum. So in reality, these cancel each other out. Why? Because if I took the ground away, if there was no ground and I just floated these guys in space, the apple pulling on the orange and the orange pulling on the apple would actually go nowhere, right? So the reason why they cancel out is without friction of the ground, without something for the apple to push on, this won't move. So when we did the cart activity, the reason why somebody actually rolled down, so there's a student on the cart, right? The reason why they were able to roll down the hall is because person number 2 was applying a force to the ground, and that force allowed them to pull them down the hall. If there was no ground to pull on, there's no ground here, neither of you would move. You would stand stationary in place. So this is why these two forces actually cancel out. This one and this one cancel out, because it's actually this friction that causes you to be able to move the person forward. So when you're looking at the entirety of the system, when you're looking at every player involved in the story, you actually realize it's the apple pushing on the ground that's causing the whole system to move forward. It is not, in fact, this pull. This pull right here, the apple would move faster. This is only applying weight. But it's actually this frictional force that causes them to move forward. Okay? Again, you would look pretty funny if I floated you in space. You would run, but if you have no traction, if you have no friction, push against the ground. So you push against the ground, and the ground pushes back on you, allowing you to move forward. So let's go into the horse cart problem. So again, another example that they use is like kicking a football. Now we've already addressed this a little bit, but when you're kicking a football, here's your foot, your shoe, with your cleats. Don't touch my shoe. And you kick the football, right? Huge field goal. When you apply a force on that, the ball actually applies the force back. These cancel out. The reason why the ball actually moves is your other leg is on the ground. Alright? If your other leg is on the ground, there's a frictional force between you and the ground. Right? So this frictional force is what allows you to get this football moving up into the air. Part of my terrible drawings. So this rolls right into the horse cart problem. It's a little bit old-fashioned, but the idea is the same as the card above. This is the system playing a part here, right? These two actually cancel out, because if there is no ground in this system, the horse would just be clopping along. So in this entire system, what actually causes the horse and cart to move forward, what actually causes this forward motion, is the force of the horse on the ground. So the force the horse applies to the ground, and the ground applies back, must be greater, notice these arrows are greater, than the force of friction that the wheel applies to the ground. It's the force of the ground, alright? So if you had square wheels, right, they'll create a little bit of friction, right? Way more. Here's our cart, right, with the horse. So square wheels create more friction. The greater the friction, the greater these arrows, right? The horse's legs are super short. So if the force pushing on the ground is equal to that of our square wheels, there's not going to be an interaction. So remember, if I box up the system in red, system is here. These two arrows cancel. Because even still, if I put them in, if I take the ground away, they would just be motionless. It takes this friction of the ground against the friction of the feet. So here's the horse. He's pushing hard against the ground. Notice his force applied to the ground. Force of friction is not exceeding the force of wheels on the ground. The force of friction versus force applied by the ground pushes car, thereby keeping this motionless. Now this one, notice down here, we have these two sets of arrows. The force applies the ground pushing back up is greater than the force of friction applied by the cart, the force of the ground pushing on the cart. This what actually allows the cart to move, not this. So 7.7 goes into so every action must equal the reaction. So a lot of times you use the idea of you punching the tissue. If you punch the tissue, there's a person holding the tissue. Holding the tissue. If you punch the tissue can only give a Newton force. You can only punch it with a Newton force before it floats away. right? Or breaks or rips. So you can only apply as much force on the tissue as the tissue can apply that on you. Same thing. If you punch a concrete wall, here's your concrete cylinders. You punch the concrete wall, apply 100 newtons of force. The wall pushes 100 newtons of force back on you, and you end up in a cast because you broke your hand. In a different scenario, you mess around in your friend's basement, you punch a drywall wall, your hand goes through it, through the hole in your friend's wall, making their parents quite angry. Because the wall could only take 20 newtons of force, and when you apply that 20 newtons, you put a hole in it. But that's why it gives way, because it only can take about 20 newtons of force. Alright. So before you work on your Take Back Packet, please do these book problems listed here. Attempt them, and then the only homework is actually page 20, the old horse problem. And a really helpful website to explain this again is this. It's called Mansfield, Connecticut. You can either copy this link or I'll have all the useful links posted for you to use, but this kind of explains what's going on and hopefully help support your understanding of the old horse problem. Right?